Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Lindsey series. This is the biggest district in Lincolnshire, containing 188 civil parishes. Without further ado, here's today's offering. Welcome back to East Lindsey, everybody. Now, you remember in the last episode we did in this series, it absolutely threw it down when we were in full stow. Thankfully, the weather has started to relent a little bit, shall we say, but I have dug my coat out from underneath my seat in my car. It's still going to be wet no matter what I do in this episode. We're beginning this one at a reservoir. You can see the banks of the reservoir here, and there's a gate, a locked gate. Now, it doesn't matter that the gate is locked, because there's a little footpath which runs all the way around this reservoir, and we can get to it by using that stile just there. This reservoir belongs to Covenham. We're in the parish of Covenham St Bartholomew. The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Covenham St Bartholomew, Cove village of St Bartholomew. Welcome to the first of what will be a two-part mini-series as we take on both of the Covenham villages in East Lindsey. We begin with Covenham St Bartholomew, the larger of the two, which is located midway between Grimsby and Louth. It has a much smaller twin, Covenham St Mary, and the two are separated by a stream. Seemingly in the middle of nowhere, the Covenham sisters are often treated as one village, but there are some differences between them. St Bartholomew is the more northerly, and it contains most of the notable features. These include the massive Covenham Reservoir in the northeastern corner of the parish, built to serve the populations of Grimsby, Cleethorpes and the surrounding villages. It also has several other functions, but we'll get to those in due course. Because there are two villages here, there are two churches, one for each of the two saints. They're separated by less than a quarter of a mile, making them candidates for the two closest Anglican churches in Lincolnshire, although that title is disputed. There are no pubs here these days, but they used to be. The new plough, which served both villages, now stands empty. There's no shop, but there is a village hall and a few listed properties thrown in, here and there. So, without further ado, in the pouring rain, let's get walking once again. We begin today's video at the huge Covenham Reservoir. This and its associated water treatment works were constructed between 1963 and 1978 by W&C French, and it was opened by Princess Alexandra in 1972. It was a controversial build because it occupies some former high-grade agricultural land. It measures approximately 1 square kilometre and its depth is approximately 20 metres. As well as serving Grimsby and Cleethorpes with water, Covenham hosts a water sports centre offering sailing, water skiing and diving, and there's a perimeter walkway open to the public. Well, you can't deny this is definitely a massive reservoir. If you just stand here next to the water sports centre and look out down this jetty, you can't really see the other side. You can see a bit of the horizon, but it's a lot bigger than I thought it was, this place. Absolutely massive. And in the summer, I imagine it's quite a beautiful place just to come and walk your dog or just have a stroll around. Probably take you quite a while to do though. So let's now head into Covenham St Bartholomew village itself and see what that's all about, shall we? I couldn't resist this shot of the surrounding land from the reservoir, by the way. You are at quite a high elevation here, so the view is really good. Below us, you can see the public car park you would use if you were to visit yourself. It's locked at dusk, so if you're wanting to explore the reservoir, plan your visit accordingly. As we head into Covenham village, let's discuss some of the reservoir's functions. Eastern Lincolnshire, believe it or not, is a relatively dry region of the UK. Covenham Reservoir helps to overcome this issue in times of need. It was purposely built next to the Louth Canal and acts as a pumped storage from it. Its main purpose is to keep Grimsby and Cleethorpes supplied with water, but in 2012 a £40 million pipeline was built linking the reservoir to Boston. Capable of transferring 26 million litres of water a day, it now serves a much wider area. The reservoir can also be used to prevent saline intrusion into the Lincolnshire chalk aquifer, which is actually the primary source of water locally. We're almost in the village now. Just before we reach it, on the left is a small track which runs to a Grade 2 listed thatched and timber framed property called Mill House. It was a former mill cottage and later a restaurant. It's 16th century originally with some later alterations. The windmill, for which it's named, stood in an adjacent field, but it's now long gone. So here we are then in Covenham St Bartholomew village, but technically speaking we're actually in two villages at once here, because there are two Covenhams. There's Covenham St Bartholomew, there's also Covenham St Mary, and where I'm standing here is the boundary between the two. There we go, you see, there's Covenham St Bartholomew this way, and if we go to the other side of this sign, you can see there's a sign that says Covenham St Mary. There we go, and I've parked literally on the border. Now this is going to be one continuous walk. We're going to start with Covenham St Bartholomew, but then I'm going to carry on when this walk reaches its conclusion, because it's a nice circular walk into Covenham St Mary, and that's going to form part 2 of this little Covenham mini series, if you like. So yeah, we're going to go this way first and see what Covenham St Bartholomew, the bigger of the two, has got. We don't need to go far to find the first landmark. Hiding in some trees is St Bartholomew's Church. Cruciform in shape and dating from the 14th century, it was made redundant in 1980. It was last repaired and reseated in 1863. Without a doubt, the most notable feature of this one is its low central bell tower, unusual in Lincolnshire as it's made of wood and sits on a slate-dressed tower. It once had a Georgian lead roof too. Its 15th century font is still in use, but not here. It's currently in All Saints Church at Newton Heath in Manchester. Nobody knows how or why it ended up there. You'll have noticed the churchyard was overgrown, but there is a much neater and tidier churchyard extension over the road. Next up we have a former pub. This was the New Plough until it closed down in 2014. It stands on the site of an older 19th century inn which was simply called the Plough. It won't ever be a pub again. In 2022, plans were put forward to transform this into 2 brand new houses which will feature their own gyms, offices and even cinema rooms. Despite this, the locals did try to buy the building themselves and reopen it as a pub again, but they were, unfortunately, unsuccessful. The rest of the village is residential except for one building halfway up the main street, which is sometimes known as Fulstow Road. The building in question is the parish room, which used to be a United Free Methodist chapel. This served both the Covenham villages. It was built in 1854 and closed as a chapel in 1980. Covenham used to have chapels for the Wesleyans and the Primitives too at one time as well. As the parish room, it's now the one and only communal place the village has, given the lack of a pub for the last 10 years. It hosts the Covenham Cafe, amongst other things. The next area of housing has at least one building that used to be something else. Covenham used to have a post office, and it was this house right here. It terms itself the Old Post House, but I guess there was no difference. I could be wrong, it has happened before. There's certainly no post office or a shop here these days. Covenham St Bartholomew has never had its own school either, but there was a school in Covenham St Mary. I'll show you where next week. Rounding off this middle section of the village is an old phone box, but this is not used for anything. It's just an empty shell, I'm afraid. Now genuinely all houses until the end, the only other thing which Covenham St Bartholomew could be noted for would be its former priory. Usually with those, I'd be able to show you earthworks or some other remnants of an existence. Here though, it's simply not possible because nobody knows for sure where it was. It was a small Benedictine priory dependent on St Calais and was founded by King William I in 1082. At most, it only ever had 2 or 3 monks. The modern farm found at Covenham Grange is believed to be where it was by many, but its exact location remains uncertain. Now it feels like we've barely begun to walk around Covenham St Bartholomew, but to be honest with you, we're virtually at the end. We're now going to take a public right-of-way which runs behind these houses you can see in shot now, and it runs back towards Covenham St Mary. When we reach the border, we'll call this one a day, and then we'll begin the next video, which you'll see next week. And that's exactly what the rest of this walk will do. This path was not as much of a challenge as I feared it could have been, and it was well defined and cut back, allowing me an easy passage between the two Covenham villages. The boundary between them is a stream, but it's not the first one this path crosses, it's the second. I had fun with this bridge at the first stream though, because it's very bouncy. Honestly, you take 2 steps onto it and it feels like you're about to spring into the air. What's that saying about little things pleasing little minds? Here's the stream anyway, it's quite deep, you know. Okay, so if you go a little bit further, you cross a road and then you come to another bridge, which is over a second stream between 2 fields. And this is the boundary between Covenham St Bartholomew and Covenham St Mary. So the Strava will stop for this episode here, and I'll restart it again in a couple of seconds, and we'll get going with Covenham St Mary. I'll see you next week. Indeed, this has only been part 1 of 2. This little drive is from a small section of the Covenham St Mary Drive-In, a video which will come your way next week. The 2 villages are like chalk and cheese. They might share the same name, but they are so very different. Come back soon to see exactly how. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.